Okay.
Mike, I don't know if you care, but you're signed in under Madison.
Oh, I am.
McGee by your name.
Good call out. Let me fix that.
That was mostly out of concern for Madison's reputation, not yours.
Oh, and she would agree with you.
Roger's here, so I think we're good.
Awesome. Okay, Glenn, we're ready to jump in.
Okay, fixed it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I'd like to have a moment of silence. On the 27th of January last week, we lost a veteran firefighter in our community, Thomas Tevlin. He was a firefighter, a member of the Maplewood Fire Department for 33 years. He was also a longtime Maplewood resident, and he will be missed. So we can just have a moment of silence to pay our respects. Thank you. And our prayers are with Lieutenant Tevlin's family. This is Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975. This is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, and by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2021 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December of 2020, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Adams?
Here.
Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
Here.
Glenbrick?
Here.
Mayor McGee?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, Commonwealth Open Public Meetings Act requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate participation of the public in any meeting. And whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Glenbrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our February 2nd Township Committee meeting. We hope everyone has been able to dig out from the tremendous snowstorm which occurred over the last 2 to 3 days. I will go through our agenda for this evening. First, we will start with public comments on agenda items only, limited to 3 minutes. Then we will have, I will read the proclamation for Black History Month. And then at that point, we'll move into what's become a tradition of singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. I will try to provide us with some music so that we do not hurt your ears. And then tonight we'll be recognizing Police Officer Robert Smith III as our Employee Spotlight Employee of the Month. At that point, we'll move into our Board of Health meeting, where we'll hear from our Health Officer, Ms. Candace Davenport. And then we have one ordinance on final passage, and this is in regard to our leaf blower ordinance. And then we will go into a resolution regarding the appointing of our new township administrator. We have one ordinance on introduction, a new one. This is regarding the library bond. And then we will hear any reports from our department. After that, we will have our administrative reports, which include Mr. Schuster, our township administrator, Mr. Desiderio, our township attorney, and Ms. Fritzen, our township clerk. And then what I'm calling 14.5, we will hear from our elected officials. We will hear from Mr. DeLuca, we'll hear from Ms. Adams, we'll hear from Mr. Limbrick, and then we'll hear from Mr. Daffis. At that point, we'll head into our discussion items. We have 3 for tonight. 1 on recreation fees, the second on capital project overview expenditures, and then whether we'll be joining in with Newark in regards to this U.S. Supreme Court case and appealing what New Jersey State Supreme Court did regarding investigative oversight powers with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Our consent agenda has 11 items tonight. There are several different items, including the awarding of a professional contract, authorizing bids to accept for capital improvement projects during 2021, authorization change order. We have the awarding of another contract for snow plowing and hauling services, no time like the present. We'll also be authorizing a couple of tax overpayment refunds. We'll also approve bills and claims. Then we'll also be appointing our assistant to the director in the Public Works Department. We will approve our regular and closed session minutes. And then after that, we will close our consent agenda and move into public comments on any subject matter that any resident would like to discuss, and then we will adjourn. So that is our agenda for tonight. We'll go ahead and get started and opening the floor for any public comments on agenda items only. So Nick, I yield the floor to you.
Okay, guys, we're at the first public comment on agenda items only. So if you're in attendance and would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function and we'll give you guys 3 minutes to speak. All right, guys, first up, Mr. Dan Segal, you got 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you to the Township Committee for addressing the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, as it is one that involves public health and safety at the local level, and also it addresses climate change. It is worth mentioning that climate change can be addressed at many different levels, globally, nationally, and locally. Although it is great that President Biden has rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, I am sure that he too would acknowledge that the actual implementation is up to every business and every government entity, especially at the local level. Real measurable results can be seen when thousands of entities take steps to address climate change. The ordinance as proposed extends the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers by 2 weeks in May. Although this is a step in the right direction, it does leave me wondering why the ordinance does not extend the ban into the fall months, when commercial lawn maintenance companies use their leaf blowers every day, all day. Residents and the environment will not experience any substantial benefit by adding 2 weeks in May. As has been mentioned many times, the gas-powered leaf blower generates as much exhaust pollution in 1 hour as 17 cars traveling slowly within a neighborhood. They also disperse fine particulate matter, which is especially dangerous to children and people with respiratory issues. I've tried to understand why one might conclude that the science behind this issue does not warrant a ban of the leaf blowers during the fall months. An email I received from a Township Committee member made these points. First, changes like this must be incremental. My response is that the existing ban during the spring and summer months has been in place for a few years, and we have all adjusted very well, so it's time to make further improvements. A second point offered in the email was that some residents, given the size of their property and their particular circumstances, including age and health issues, need a lawn maintenance company to do the work.
30 seconds.
Okay, we all agree that residents of any age or circumstances should be free to hire a lawn maintenance company. The obvious question is, if the Township Committee has acknowledged the harm done by gas-powered leaf blowers and has wisely banned them during several months of the year.
10 seconds.
How could it be that the same harm is not being done in the fall months? fumes and noise are as harmful in October and November as they are in May.
And that's time. Okay, guys, I don't have anybody else.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. All right, hearing no one else, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our Black History Month proclamation. So I'll go ahead and read that. Whereas every February, Black History Month is celebrated to raise the awareness of the achievements of Black Americans and all people of African descent in the United States. And whereas historian and author Dr. Carter G. Woodson created Black History Week in 1926 to encourage the study of Black life and history. And in 1976, it was expanded to Black History Month. And whereas throughout our country's history, there have been millions of Black Americans who have personified Black excellence by fighting for and making personal sacrifices to create a better America for all through their stellar contributions in science, technology, business, religion, the arts, education, and sports. And whereas these contributions have set a new standard for our nation and the world. And whereas Black American trailblazers include, but are not limited to, human rights activist Harriet Tubman, Toussaint Louverture, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, literary scholars Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, and Amanda Gordon. Artist EGOT winners, James Earl Jones and Quincy Jones. Sports legends, Kobe Bryant, Hank Aaron, Doug Williams, Jackie Robinson, and LeBron James. And politicians, David Dinkins, Harold Washington, President Barack Obama, and Vice President Kamala Harris. And whereas Black Americans have bravely broken down racial barriers in the face of unspeakable discrimination and continue to push for racial and social justice. And whereas as a society, we have witnessed a wide spectrum of bias and bigotry from an infrastructure designed to prevent Black and brown individuals from attaining equality to the horrific images of bigotry and hate directed toward Black Americans, including the loss of life. And whereas Maplewood rejects bigotry and hate, as well as the long history of institutional and structural racism toward Black Americans, which has resulted in social, economic, and other inequalities that persist to this day. And whereas Maplewood acknowledges that we as a society and community still have a way to go, and that we all have a responsibility to do our part to continue to address the continuing challenges facing Black people in America today, including mass incarceration, voter suppression, institutional racism, police violence, and hate crimes. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Frank McGehee, Mayor of Township of Maplewood, on behalf of the Township Committee, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2021 as Black History Month in the Township of Maplewood. And in doing so, recognizing the historical and continued contributions of Black Americans, that we as a community pause and reflect upon the value of these contributions to us all, and not just this month, but every month. And that we urge our community to dedicate themselves to the principles of justice and equality for all, and to be mindful that diversity, equity, and inclusion, and actively being anti-racist is a year-round priority. Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move into agenda item number 7. Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. Which is a tradition which we've started, which is singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here.
Mr. Mayor, which of us should remain on mute for the singing of this song?
Oh, no, no, everyone has to sing. It's in their agenda. But I figured this year, since we're not together, that maybe we could have some voice accompaniment to provide some relief to our to the residents who might be watching this evening. So
that would be welcome.
So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to hit play. Hopefully my volume's loud enough, and then we in turn can start singing. It's in your agenda. So here we go. All right. Lift every voice and sing till
Earth and heaven ring
Bring with
the
the
harmonies of liberty.
Let our rejoicing rise high as the skies. Let it resound like a rolling sea. Sing a song full of path our path has taught us. Sing a song full of present brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us run to everyone.
Very good. I'm sure we're going to get blasted on social media tonight. It's all good.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen.
You know this is recorded and available on YouTube, right? Okay.
Yeah, we might make national news. A township committee tried to sing.
Mr. Daffis, I heard you the clearest. I couldn't find my word.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, you carried it. You carried us.
Yes. Well, I couldn't convince my daughter to sing on our behalf, so we did our best.
No, I actually think Davis and DeLuca were the stars tonight.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll now move on to agenda item number 8, and that is our employee spotlight. What I'd like to do is have our public safety chair, if he may be so willing, to read the employee spotlight for Police Officer Robert Smith III.
Mr. Mayor, it would be my pleasure to recognize and show our appreciation to Officer Smith. And I know Chief Duvall is here with us tonight, and once I speak, I may ask him to say a few words as well before we turn the floor over to Officer Smith. But first things first. Whereas the Township of Maplewood has been fortunate to have dedicated staff committed to the mission of our municipality, and whereas we express our sincere gratitude for the level of professionalism that Officer Smith has shown in protecting the life and property of all citizens of Maplewood, our township is a better and safer place because of your commitment and your service. We as the Township Committee wish to extend our appreciation to you for your sacrifice and your efforts to keep our community safe and secure. And whereas the township wishes to extend our sincere best wishes for your happiness and success in the future, and also in keeping the township a desirable place to work. Now therefore be it resolved that the Maplewood Township Committee recognizes and appreciates the service of Police Officer Robert Smith III and wishes him well in all future endeavors, and further that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded on this second day of the month of February 2021. And I would just like to add that we've had the pleasure of recognizing Officer Smith before, not as Employee of the Month, but for acts of bravery and heroism that have gone above and beyond the call of duty. And when I say that we have officers at our police department who literally, when they got to the scene of a fire, have the fire department wasn't there yet, have literally run inside and carried people out and saved lives. Officer Smith is one of the people who I'm specifically talking about. And I will turn it over to Chief Duvall, who I'm sure also has some words of appreciation to say about Officer Smith, and then we'll give Officer Smith the opportunity to say a few words. Chief?
So thank you very much. I appreciate the committee very much for recognizing Officer Smith once again. Officer Smith does a great job. I can't say enough about him. More importantly, Officer Smith is respected by his peers, all the officers, the supervisors. Officer Smith is somebody that comes to work, does a great job, and puts the interest of the township and the residents ahead of everything when he's at work. He literally does a great job. I appreciate him very much. I can't say enough about his work ethic. When he comes to work, not only does he do his job, which we're paying him for, but he is a leader and a mentor. He is a great hire. I respect him immensely, and he does, again, I say he does a great job.
Thank you, Chief. So, Officer Smith, we don't require a speech or anything, but if you'd like to say a few words, the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the acknowledgement and the honor. I appreciate it. Thank you, Township Committee, the Mayor, and my chief and the administration. Of course, I'm Robert Smith III. My dad and my stepmom and my sister have been residents here for over 30 years in Maplewood. Just to give you a brief history about myself so people know who they're honoring. I did 5 years in the military, United States Military Police Corps, at which time I was overseas in Germany, and I came back to the United States, worked with the Secret Service and presidents, vice presidents in a K-9 section where we accompanied them with bomb sniffing dogs. And I exited the military as a sergeant, as a supervisor in charge of training. I've been on Maplewood Police Department for 20 years. I'm in year 20 right now, which time I've done traffic. I've been a detective. I've also been the school resource officer at Columbia High School, which was probably the most rewarding part of my career. As a detective, I learned the most. And now I'm in year 20, and I'm, the second part, most rewarding part of my career is exactly what the chief just said. I'm in a place of leadership, and I'm mentoring and guiding newer officers and younger officers to help the police department have a great face in the township and the community. Again, I want to thank you for the award. I appreciate it, and it's a privilege to even be in this meeting and be here accepting this. Thank you again.
Thank you. Well, Officer Smith, we certainly appreciate you, beyond this recognition, but we're very pleased to give you this recognition, and we hope we'll have you around for another 20 years.
He only looks about 20.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Officer Smith, the privilege is ours. Thank you for your exceptional service. Which presidents, by the way?
Oh, great question. President Clinton. I was with President Clinton, Vice President Gore. I traveled with Dalai Lama and Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and a bunch of other dignitaries.
That's awesome.
Amazing, amazing opportunity you had. That's terrific. Good for you. Thank you again.
And
no
he
problem.
Still looks like he's 25.
So it's been a pleasure to not only serve my country, serve this community as well.
Pleasure's ours. Thank you.
Right. Officer Smith was on a call 10 minutes before this, and I had to literally drag him off the road to come in.
Dedicated as always. Thank you, Officer Smith, for everything.
All right.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Thank you.
I can go?
You can
yes,
go.
Sir.
Oh, okay.
See
Have
ya.
a good one. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll give the floor back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. That was awesome. All right, we'll now move into agenda item number 9, which is our Board of Health meeting. I'll yield the floor to Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm much more confident speaking rather than singing. My pleasure to get our Board of Health meeting going this evening. Pursuant to Section 5 of Chapter 231 of the Public Laws, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2021 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2020, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
Here.
Lembrick?
Here.
Mayor McGehee?
Here.
Mr. Daffis?
Here, thank you.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And with that, I yield the Zoom to Ms. Davenport. Welcome aboard, Ms. Davenport. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much, everyone.
President Daffis, do we have minutes to approve?
Actually, let's see. Actually, we do have minutes to approve.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we approve the January 5th, 2021 Board of Health minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Lembrick. Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes. So this time for real, we give the floor to Ms. Davenport.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, Township Committee, and thank you for the approval of the January minutes. Here's our report for January, excuse me. As of February 2nd, today, we have a total of 958 COVID cases in Maplewood. To give you some context, at the end of January, we had this is as of February 2nd. At the end of January, we had 955. That's as of January 31st. And for the month of January, we had 185 cases for the month of January. We also have 31 deaths. That has stayed the same. Moving on to our mass vaccination updates. As you all know, our numbers of vaccination sites are at 5, and we have steadily increased our daily vaccinations from 350 to almost 700 because now we're moving into the second phase of vaccinating people for their second dose of vaccine, as well as giving out primary doses for new cases of COVID vaccinations. So this is very exciting news. Unfortunately, I know that people are anxious. I'd like to say that they're excited to get it and they're wondering how to go about doing that. So we did have some information posted on the Village Green, but I just want to reiterate that it's also on our township website at the COVID-19 portal page, but that there are 2 ways to do that. One is to go on www.essexcovid.org and schedule a vaccine. Once you do that, you'll be entered into a queue. And as the county gets more vaccinations, they will notify you via email of your date and time to receive your vaccinations at the Livingston Mall Sears site between Monday through Saturday. Hours are like 9:30, 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll also be scheduled for your second vaccine automatically 28 days later. The second way to register for a vaccine or pre-register to receive notifications is through the COVID-19 state website. So that is covid19.nj.gov. And in the search engine, you would enter in vaccinations. And there you can enter in your information to receive notifications from the state as to A, whether you're eligible, and B, where you can go. And you can also look up on their website by county of locations that are offering COVID vaccinations. That's not only just the Essex COVID locations like the Livingston Mall, but a multitude of other locations. For these, each person would have to individually call or schedule themselves, but that is yet another way to go about doing that. So just want to let people know about those two ways of registering oneself for receiving a COVID-19 vaccination. That being said, I just want to reemphasize that there are only 2 tiers that are open right now for eligible populations. That is Tier 1A for healthcare workers and first responders, and those who are working at long-term care facilities, and Tier 1B. That includes anyone who's 65 and older, or between the ages of 18 to 64 with underlying health conditions that are specified by the CDC and the State Health Department. As to when the other tiers will open up for as other essential workers, and then those with underlying health conditions, and then the general public is to be foreseen. We are still waiting and hoping that as more vaccine supply is available, those tiers will open up shortly. Again, all information will be posted on our website, the Township website, and we have a COVID-19 portal where you can go for the latest information, as well as the mayor's weekly updates are there too. As I've always mentioned, COVID-19 testing availability is still on through Essex County. I just want to reemphasize that people can go to www.essexcovid.org to schedule a test, as well as schedule a vaccine. Testing is super important because it allows us to find cases. We then are notified through the labs, and then we do our case investigation where we assist the resident and their household on the best way to isolate and quarantine. One of the things that I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to introduce to you our new member of our team, which is Talia Jeffers. She is our new Vulnerable Populations Outreach Coordinator, and it's one of those people who reaches out to our residents in the event that they are unable or have difficulty with isolation and quarantine during COVID. So I will definitely get to her. And again, I just want to say thank you for the resolution for this month, for Black History Month, and as well as congratulations to Officer Robert Smith III at the police department. So I get to introduce Ms. Talia Jeffers. She is our new Vulnerable Populations Outreach Coordinator. And just to give you some context of who she is, Talia last year started out as a Rutgers REHS or Environmental Health Specialist intern from Rutgers at our health department. And it just so happened, luckily, that we said yes. And we are so fortunate that we did, because then that led to her becoming an employee for the township as a social distancing ambassador supervisor, and was very instrumental, along with our supervisors and our social distancing ambassadors, in making that program happen throughout the summer and early fall. And then she became a licensed REHS during that time. And then because of her knowledge of the township, because of her master's in public health, because of her certification in health education, and as a licensed registered environmental health specialist, we felt she was just the best candidate for this job to help us deal with COVID and be our Vulnerable Populations Outreach Coordinator. Let me just emphasize that this is also a federal grant that was passed through the state. It has an endpoint of June 2021, so it's only 6 months, with the opportunity for extension into another year, which we hope to engage in, and that will be until June 2022. But as you'll see, as she gives you her preliminary report, and she just started January 4th, you'll see everything that she's already been done, and you'll see that her work has been invaluable. Lastly, this VPOC grant has also allowed us to extend employment for Shahira Morel, who is also a part-time registered environmental health specialist. She does all of our inspections along with Pete Dillon. But as part of the VPOC grant, she is also a contact tracer and case investigator for us during COVID. But one of the most important and crucial things that she's able to do is she's a Spanish translator. So she has allowed us to reach out and get those phone calls answered and develop a trust with a lot of our residents and community who, for them, English is a second language and not their primary one. And that has really created us, put us in a good position of informing them, educating them, and having them be receptive to hearing from the health department. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Talia Jeffers to give you her report.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, again, my name is Talia Jeffers, and I am a Vulnerable Populations Outreach Coordinator. I am going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see. Can everyone see the screen? No?
No, not yet.
Okay, it may not work. Okay.
I think you were just made a co-host, so you may be able to. You want to give it another go, Talia?
Okay, let's see.
Good to see the rest of your face in our in our meeting last week. I could only see your eyes.
It's not coming up, so that's perfectly fine.
Are you trying to put up your report? I can put it
No, I
up.
was trying to put up the website from New Jersey Department of Health to show some stats. Yeah.
I have your report, which has some of that in there.
Yeah, you can go ahead and show that.
Yeah, that would actually help a lot. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca.
Okay.
That's perfect. If we can increase the Zoom, if that helps.
Wow.
200.
Let's see what we can do here.
Like if you go over to that 100% and make it 120.
Oh, here we go. Yep.
Okay.
You guys, your pictures were blocking it. Here we go.
There you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. So obviously this information comes from the New Jersey Department of Health COVID dashboard. On this dashboard, you are looking at state and county aggregate data, which is divided by age, gender, race, hospitalization, and mortality rates. If you can scroll down, there's another set of figures there. So based on the data collected from at least the last 10 months, it is clear that minority communities and Black and Hispanic communities are disproportionately affected with high rates of hospitalization and death due to COVID-19 infections. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the already existing conditions for populations with lesser social support, access to services, and fewer opportunities, with the end result being more cases, hospitalizations, and death. This grant could have not come at the perfect time because at the beginning of COVID, people did not know whether or not they would need additional services. Now, here we are almost a year into COVID, and it has shined a bright light on the very social determinants of health that was otherwise hidden because residents either identified as ALICE or the working class. According to United Way, ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constraint, Employed, and these are our essential workers. So our teachers, our grocery store clerks, nurses, caregivers, people that look like you and I, who now find themselves in basic need of life necessities like food, housing, health insurance, mental services, and more. I would love to let you know that Maplewood Health Department is the first local health department out of 13 who have submitted the VPOC grant application, hired someone, and immediately started working. As Candace stated, Since January 4th, 2021, Shahira and I were able to connect 15 residents and their families with services they required to safely isolate and quarantine. Such services included information, food, housing for house isolation purposes, at-home doctor visits, testing locations, and navigating the exitcovid.org website to register for a vaccine. While yes, it is true, COVID disproportionately affects minority communities, it does not target a specific race. We have identified non-traditional vulnerable populations who are in need of services we are ready and willing to connect them to. So next, I'll go into the goals for this grant. I have 3 main goals. So the first goal of the VPOC grant is to ensure residents who are, you're scrolling. You can show them as well. That's perfectly fine. Yes. So the first grant goal is to ensure people who are self-identify as COVID-19 positive or COVID exposed have access to resources and are aware that the Maplewood Health Department can connect them to additional social support services. Along with the health officer and public health nurse, as a VPOC, I am a part of the team to decrease the number of COVID cases and commit the decrease in the spread of disease. The second goal, large goal, I would like to point out, would be to conduct outreach and provide consistent health education to the community with a clear focus on the betterment of health for the residents of Maplewood, especially those who are vulnerable and require additional help. So as an example, one activity to meet this goal would be to partner with Shahira Morel and 2 Towns for All Ages, leaders of SOMA Facebook groups who are interested in conducting focus groups across 3 different target populations to obtain a better understanding of their view on COVID, the vaccine, preventative measures, and who they trust in order to provide them with accurate information. This way, we can better streamline information directly to them. While Shahira Morel also speaks another language, she is able to build trust in communities in order to educate and communicate with residents in their native language. Another example of that would be closely working with Ms. Beverly Ashman, who is the Director of Welfare. She also has a clear, direct line to countywide social services resources. Ms. Beverly this past week helped me assist a woman this week who had issues isolating because she could not isolate at home due to the exposure of her elderly grandmother. So she helped secure a location at a hotel to make sure that she would isolate with her and her 2-year-old son during this time, which was great. And the last goal I would really try to commit to, and very happy to, is to establish a go-to place where anyone in need of food can take whatever they need through implementing a community fridge in collaboration with Community Service Department, which would be located on the Springfield Avenue side of town. So this community fridge will offer fresh produce and other items to anyone passing by. So you don't have to be just a resident of Maplewood. You can be driving by, you can be walking by. Anyone who is in need of food would be able to access it at this location. While also building a stronger community, it would be able to promote equal access to healthy food. So to conclude, the acceptance of the VPOC grant by the Township of Maplewood is a direct reflection of the resolution the Township of Maplewood passed last year. Health is in all policies. There is a clear connection with the township in this grant to ensure the zip code, 1, are born, live, work, play, and are positively impacted by their health and well-being to provide residents with the services they may need now, so the next time they are better prepared and eventually come out of the vulnerable populations group. So I would like to take this time to thank the Township Committee, Township Administration, and my amazing health officer, Ms. Candace Davenport, for the time and allowing me to present tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Talia. That's exceptional work in just less than a month that you've been with us. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Candace?
I'm just elated. I love my team. I love you guys so much. Like, I'm just super proud of her. She worked really hard to do her report. She was super nervous and excited, and she just did such a great job. So I'm really happy for her. And thank you, Mr. DeLuca, for assisting her with the presentation. So that's great. Thank you. So, let me move on. Talia, do you have any other words that you'd like to say, or does the Township Committee or administration have any questions for Talia at this time?
So I have a sort of an observation and a question. I've done 2 days of volunteering up at the Livingston site. And to be totally honest, there's just the number of people of color that come through there to get vaccines is very small.
Yeah.
Now I know, we're in a cohort with Livingston and Milburn and Belleville, but we're also in a cohort with Orange and South Orange and Maplewood. And most of those folks, particularly even the where you have a little more diversity among the population is the healthcare workers. But when you get to the elderly population, it's almost all white. And so what are we doing? And this is all now been talked about in the news in New York City, and the president's been talking about this, the vice president's been talking about this. What are we doing locally to try to change that, to get more of our residents of color who are in the appropriate classes right now to get up to that vaccination site?
You want me to take this, Candace?
I'll chime in after you. If you go ahead, I'll let you talk first.
Honestly, we're really trying to focus in on providing as much education as we can, as much information, and making sure that the residents know where to get this information. A lot of the lack may come in with trust in the vaccine, trust in the word that's being spread. So if we can provide them with consistency and accuracy with the information that's coming from the state, the county, locally, that can help. But then also through the focus groups that we plan to do, that will show there's people like me that's getting the vaccine. There's people like me that believe in the vaccine. So if my mom get it or my brother get it, I'm more likely to get it. So if they see the focus groups and what comes of the focus groups, maybe they will be more inclined. But definitely just pushing the narrative, pushing getting tested, not to stop getting tested once you get vaccinated, but then just making sure we continuously hit them with information through all various ways.
I also want to add, these are really good points. In fact, part of the sole reason why we're working with Soma 2 towns is because they have connections to these various Soma Facebook groups, but also because that's exactly the population that we want to target. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. I also want to mention that the apartment building on Irvington Avenue has been vaccinated. They've already started their first dosages, and they've given about, I think, 51 vaccines, Talia, and I think they're going up for another round, for round 1 to get another 50. So that's another population. And our senior advisory committee meeting, along with our Soma 2 towns, we recently rebroadcasted the Time Before Vaccinations documentary. And we had a very good conversation with a lot of our seniors on that call. So we're hoping that the word is going to spread through our channels. But also, you just gave me an idea, Mr. DeLuca, that probably we should reach out through the schools as well to do a campaign to say, look, you care for your grandchildren through the school district. Students, you have grandparents who live with you, get them, tell them they're eligible to get vaccinated because they may not be aware of it. One of the other things is transportation for seniors. I think, we have a lot of seniors who can drive themselves. They're very independent, but they also rely on their family members to get them there. So it is a good thing to inform their middle-aged adult children to say, your parent can go now. They should go and schedule an appointment. I think one of the barriers is navigating the registration system, which is where Talia and Shahira come in handy, because they literally walk them through each step. And as for seniors, or people who aren't familiar with technology, it takes a little while, and they're they're nervous, like they get frustrated, like where's the button? So this is why these two are super crucial to get to that population. So thank you for bringing that up.
I also think the focus groups that we're going to do, especially as we get closer to general population soon, provided we get the supply that we need, I think the focus groups with Soma Latinos and Soma Shares and some of the groups that are doing food distribution events in our town over at Seth Boyden, our community groups, that's going to help us target folks who lack confidence, who are off our radar, our communications radar, who aren't with us tonight, and who are, just generally not confident about government information or talking to anyone from government or receiving any sort of vaccine through a government provider, or medical provider for that reason. So I think we need to definitely put some focus groups together, Candace and Talia, in the coming weeks and start a more targeted approach now that we have a lot of information out there already generally.
One point, if I may add, is that also I know that the county had reached out to us and we provided them with a list of our clergy. We're supposed to be getting a clergy program. I'm not sure where that is, but a lot of us, we go to church, so we need to see where that is, because that's going to be a big help too.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a good one too. And we'll reach out to them as well and find out where we are with the county. Thank you. Okay. If you have no further questions for Tilly, I'll move on to the last part of our Board of Health report, which is our environmental health report. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up tonight was the role of the health department in grease traps and restaurant sanitation, right? So we go from rats and COVID to restaurant sanitation, grease traps. Okay, so there are sanitation lines that go to our joint meeting and they deal with our wastewater. If a grease trap, which is a trap that traps grease in a restaurant, does not function properly, unfortunately, it allows too much grease to go through our sewer lines into the wastewater, and we, as a township, exceed, grease or other pollutants. They measure that and they try to see how much is there. The purpose of us going into our restaurants is to do our annual restaurant inspections, and as part of our state restaurant code, we go in there and we check as per the UCC or Universal Construction Code. Do you have a grease trap if you have a 3-compartment sink? If you do, terrific. When was the last time you maintained it? And these are the kinds of questions that we prompt them. If they have any questions of like, hey, I just started this business and I'm not sure how to open up or use that grease trap or maintain it, we also provide information to them that is provided to us from the joint meeting. As for who's responsible for the grease trap, that belongs to the restaurant owner, but also is under the provision or purview of the plumbing inspector through the building department. So this is where building department, DPW, engineering, and health kind of coincide with one another, because we all have a role to play in ensuring that the wastewater that comes from the township with regard to grease is addressed. And so all of us play a role in that. So I just wanted to give you guys that context. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to assist. Okay.
I do actually, Ms. Davenport, sorry, just real quick. Do we tie into their annual renewal or annual inspection or proof that their grease trap has been maintained, or, because it's a regular thing they have to do, so they could get certification or proof that they've done it? Because we have had issues with grease clogging up our lines and having to go in and maintain them or clean them out, or,
So as a health department, in terms of our restaurant inspections, what we can do is ask them if they have one. And then if they don't, make sure that they do before they open up as a restaurant. And then verify that they have, maintained it and what's their annual or are they doing it like every quarter? And we just started recording that information that we can provide to DPW and engineering, just to say, the restaurants on Maplewood Village, for example, we're asking them like, when was the last time you did it and who's your vendor for cleaning it up? As for who is requiring them to maintain it, that falls under the UCC and is under the plumbing inspector and building inspection to ensure that that gets done. Because unfortunately, as you said, if it's not maintained, it then has a downstream effect in our pipes.
Yeah, well, and it costs us time and money to.
Absolutely.
So if it goes, falls under UCC, is there a way to tie it to their annual, to basically you can't pass your inspection unless you have proof that this has been done regularly? And I don't know the answer to this. That's why I'm throwing it out there. And maybe it's for our, code committee or something else, but it's just something I want to, throw out there.
This is something we'll be discussing next week in code.
Okay.
It certainly has come up recently a lot.
Right.
Through health department inspections of restaurants, but also through our budget talks, our preliminary subcommittee budget talks, because clearly we have to be we have to think about the health of our sewer lines, especially the one along Maplewood Avenue in the village, where, in the past 10 years, the character of the village has changed drastically. It's gone from hardware, little stores where you go and pick up something, to restaurant upon restaurant upon restaurant. So that is putting a lot of pressure on our sewers. And we will be discussing how exactly, as you stated, Nancy, how we could exercise more authority and tie it in more, so that we have more enforcement power at the local.
More teeth to it so that we don't have to play catch up. Like they just can't open if they don't have it maintained and can't prove it.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Evans. I also want to add to what Mr. Daff has said, that the landscape of Maplewood Village has also changed in the fact that we have more apartment buildings. So that's more usage of the sewer line. So that's another conversation to have with construction as to, like, how do we manage how much goes in there and what is getting put through the lines. But when I spoke with the state health department, and we could talk about this further in code, at our code meeting, they said, grease traps, while we are there to just ask if they have one, is the purview of the plumbing inspector in your municipality.
Any questions for Ms. Davenport? Are there any questions, Nick, if you can tell, from the public for the health department for Ms. Davenport?
We don't have any hands raised, Mr. Daffis.
Okay, I think with that, then I move that we adjourn our meeting and meet again on what date is that? March
2nd.
March 2nd. There you go.
Second.
Great.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Mayor, I yield back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. We'll now move on to agenda item number 10. We have an ordinance on final.
Yes, Mayor. Item number 10, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3016-21. Is an ordinance limiting use of gas-powered leaf blowers within the Township of Maplewood. This ordinance will regulate the use of gas-powered leaf blowers within the Township of Maplewood.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance limiting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers within the Township of Maplewood?
You're talking about the public, right, Mayor?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I don't have any hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing. May I get a motion?
Yes, I move this ordinance to be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let the Township Committee know that Montclair is introducing on first reading tonight an amendment to their ordinance. They've reached out to me, a couple different people from Montclair, to strengthen their ordinance that has been on the books for quite a while but wasn't enforced for years. The timing of theirs is just something that I thought was interesting and maybe something we want to consider in the future. Instead of our restriction goes from May 1st through September 30th. They kind of flip that and they only allow the use of the gas-powered leaf blowers between March 15th and May 15th and between October 15th and December 15th. So in other words, they're restricted from mid-December until mid-March, then they're allowed for a couple months, then they're restricted again until fall cleanup and then allowed. So it's just another way to look at it. So something we might want to consider in the future. But anyway, that's all. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Thanks. Sorry.
No worries. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to agenda item number 11. We have a resolution.
Yes, Mayor, it's a resolution appointing township administrator.
Thank you. Can we get a motion?
Certainly, Mayor. I'm delighted to move Resolution 5621, appointing Mr. Jerry Jimes, who's with us this evening, as Maplewood Township's next business administrator. We're really delighted to be able to announce that after a very competitive process. Jerry is the one, and we're looking forward to having him come on board.
I'll second that emotion.
Awesome. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. And thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Well, now on agenda item number 12, we have introduction of a new ordinance.
Mayor, ordinance number 3017-21, bond ordinance providing for the construction, equipping, and furnishing of a new library in and by the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $20 million, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $12 million in bonds or notes of the township to finance the cost thereof.
May I get a motion, Mr. Daffis?
Yes, Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on February 16th, 2021.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to reports from our department heads. I do not believe we have any reports this evening, so we will go ahead and table that agenda item, and we will now move on to agenda item number 14, which is administrative reports, and we'll hear first from our administrator, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just a few things to report out on. Number one, I want to continue to urge everyone to be vigilant as we continue our fight throughout this pandemic. It became personal for me because I think, as everyone knows, I did get coronavirus, which is why I was not at the last meeting. Fortunately, I'm one of the lucky ones. I recovered fairly quickly. I do have a little bit of a nagging cough and a raspy voice, which is the only reason I was not able to join you in song earlier. But I do want to urge everyone. I do want to urge everyone to keep up the precautions, wear your mask, wash your hands. I don't know where I got it from. So it's a mystery to me. So it's out there. Please remain vigilant. The second thing I wanted to mention was just a quick thank you to everyone involved in the snow cleaning effort. We had lots of people out there. Public Works was out in full force. This was a long duration storm. Certainly got quite a bit of snow, and I want to commend all of them for the hard work that they did, along with our other first responders who had to go ahead and adjust their schedules, make sure we had adequate staffing, and everything that they do to make sure that Maplewood remains a safe community. And lastly, with the motion you just passed, the resolution you just passed, I do want to welcome the new administrator, and I'll be working diligently to ensure that there's a smooth transition so that he can hit the ground running.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Is there any questions for Mr. Schuster? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to hear from our township attorney, Mr. Desiderio.
Mr. Mayor, I have no specific report, but I would just like to echo what Mr. Schuster said. As a resident, I thought our streets were done very, very well. It was nice to wake up and see blacktop. So kudos to DPW and Mr. Kittner, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Is there any questions for Mr. Desiderio?
I have one quick question, Mayor. Mr. Desiderio, just checking in on the status of the social worker contract with Jewish Family Services. I know that you've been working with South Orange Village Administrator Adam Leuner on this, and I just wanted to get a sense of where we are. How's it coming along?
I'll tell you what I know. How it's coming along, I'm not sure. I did revision. And I will not editorialize, Mr. Davis, no matter how much you push me. Okay. I sent proposed revisions to the administrator some time ago. I spoke to him. He said that I didn't understand the situation. He said that he was going to call you to discuss it, and that's where it has rested probably for about a week.
Okay. Thank you for the update, Mr. Desiderio.
Yeah, frankly, I'm sorry. I thought my impression was he was going to get in touch with you right away, that we were going to get this work through. I should have probably alerted you to that. I apologize for not doing that.
No worries, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Any more questions for Mr. Desiderio?
I just want to compliment Mr. Desiderio on such an even keel in giving that report.
You see, like fine wine. I'm aging.
Very good. You didn't have any attitude at all. It was great.
It's awesome. All right. So I know that our new administrator has joined us, which is great. And I thought that we would just, give him an opportunity to yield the floor to him. I want to say publicly, we're very blessed to have two great administrators. I'm looking at them right here in my Zoom box. And Mr. Schuster, I've said this to you privately, I said this publicly, you've been and continue to be a great advocate for our community. We really appreciate you and your continued service in that capacity. Mr. Jimes, I'd like to yield the floor to you so you can introduce yourself to the Township of Maplewood and our residents.
You have to unmute though.
Okay, all set. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the comments, and thank you to the governing body for your confidence in this appointment. I do know from the history of Maplewood and from people who have served this position in the past that, it is a role that has some excellent history, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. And I hope to carry on that tradition for a very long time to come. It really is, as I've said before in our interviews, a great professional accomplishment to join this community because, as I know from my research and just from living in North Jersey, Maplewood is clearly one of the premier municipalities throughout the state that is just so rich with culture, diversity, and activism on so many levels. And because of that, while this is obviously a great professional accomplishment, it's also a personal accomplishment. It's personal because I get to join a community whose ideals and visions and thirst for social justice perfectly align with how my personal worldview has evolved throughout the course of my career over the last several years. I've been involved in the public sector in one way or another for, hard to believe, 20 years. And I've been around some great public servants. I've been in some excellent communities. In that time, I've learned so much. I've seen so much. And in all my years of studying policy and putting it into practice, that journey has led me here to you tonight, where not only can I say I found a professional fit, I found a personal fit. So I really look forward to serving the community. To anybody else who's on the call, I'm not sure any employees or community stakeholders, and of course the mayor of the township committee, township attorney, the health department who's been here. I look forward to getting to know and working with everybody in the next several weeks to come. Although my start date's not until March 8th, I have signed up for several of the virtual events that you're having for Black History Month. And I've even begun to read the book that Mayor McGehee is presenting, Cast, which you might see behind me. So about halfway through that. So looking forward to being a part of the community, and I intend to dive right in. Thank you again. I really look forward to this, and I can't wait to get to work.
Thank you, Mr. Gimes, and welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Jerry. Well said.
We'll all know how to pronounce your last name soon.
Chimes, baby, rhymes with rhymes.
I know, but the public's not going to know that. You're going to have to spell it differently, I think. No, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move forward here, and we'll now yield the floor to our township clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to make a report on the status of the commuter parking permits and merchant parking permits and all of the other parking that we do provide in the township. And that is that the 30-day grace period has expired. So we will be monitoring people's participation for a 2021 permit beginning today. So basically, we've had probably more people take advantage of commuter parking than I would have imagined. And we've provided the parking permits for schools, lots of merchants, renewing our overnight lots, 4 of them. And again, we're making progress. So if anybody's listening from the public, now would be the time to either bring your application and your payment and proof to any one of the 3 lock boxes at Town Hall, or to mail it in. As again, I said at the last meeting, we turn them right around. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Fritzen?
I do have one question. There's an ABC license coming up soon.
I'm waiting for the police report, Mr. DeLuca, so possibly by our next meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeLuca, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Any more questions for Ms. Fritzen? Okay, hearing none, we will move on, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Again, we're going to move on to what I'm calling 14.5 on our agenda tonight, which is reports from our elected officials. And we will first hear from Mr. DeLuca.
So are you saying Liz's office left us off the agenda?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, all right. That was my question, Liz. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
We wanted to get out here early.
Thanks for covering me, Mayor. That was
Yeah. So I have 6 items, but before I start, I just want to join the complimenting of the Public Works. I put my virtual background here is the Public Works Center. They were out there. I couldn't believe it when I got up this morning and saw blacktop. I also saw about an 8-foot pile of snow in my driveway, but it was well worth it. And you know, we had a OEM meeting Sunday morning, and we went through with Public Works. They were very prepared, as were the police and fire. And so I just want the residents to know that we take these storms, or, you know, you never know what's going to happen. We planned for the last one and it was nothing, and we planned for this one and it was something. So I just want to compliment DPW and all of our police and fire and all of our town employees for their work in getting ready for this storm. So we did I'm going to share the screen here. Black History Month is this month, and we did our proclamation earlier. This is our new logo for 2021. And this is our website. It's Maplewood Arts and Culture .org, and you'll get on there, you'll see Black History Month. We had a terrific session at the library last week. We have a number of all-month activities that are going on in the village on Springfield Avenue. Things are going to happen at the middle school. A lot of businesses are involved. So you can go on and see, here's our proclamation tonight. There's a big Thursday night event with the Community Coalition on Race. We have plays. Art is coming up this weekend, and then Trayvon Martin birthday party. And then it just keeps going and going and going through the whole month. So please, we're all home now. We can jump on the computer and take advantage of these activities. We really have a robust set of activities. I want to thank all the organizations in town who have participated, and the Archuleta, our Director of Division of Arts and Culture, for her work on this. Number two, I did want to give an update on the Engineering, Public Works, and Planning meeting we had. We did go over the budgeting, and you'll see Resolution 4821 tonight. We're going to be authorizing bids for a number of capital programs. We did ask Mr. Kittner to come back to us in the budget hearings with some priorities, and he's preparing that, working with Mr. Schuster. So I know in February, when we have those hearings, we're going to try to take a look at what really needs to get done and try to hone that down, get that number down a little bit. Our application to the state for EV charging stations is still being reviewed by the Department of Environmental Protection. Tracy Woods and Mr. Kittner were involved in making some additional comments to the DEP. Our tree planting, I know we got a lot of snow. We're not planting anything right now, but we are scheduled for the spring. We're going to do an intensive tree planting in our parks. Our pool project is moving forward. There was a little concern about the schedule, and the contractor has brought on additional crews to keep that going. And Mr. Kittner believes we'll be on schedule for the opening of the pool. Our fueling station project is moving ahead. We have another resolution on the consent agenda, 4721, that deals with that project. And we installed 2 new lead push button pedestrian signs and lights at Boyden and Tuscan and Boyden and Jacoby. Anybody who's been to the bread stand knows what a difficult time it is to cross Boyden there. So now you can press that button and the blink lights, and we'll be able to get you across. And then we also put the other one up by Tuscan Road and Boyden, where we have a lot of crossing for Seth Boyden School. And we have a new crosswalk on Springfield Avenue. It's a mid-block crosswalk down near the new building. And so that'll help do a little more safety area down there, because it's a large stretch between Burnett and Boyden Avenue. I want to move to the library project. We're in the design stages right now with the architect. We've put together, and of course, tonight we introduced the bond ordinance. We put together a sustainability team that's working with the architects and the engineers on making that a LEED certified building. We've set up, we started conversations this morning with Mr. Cologe on setting up the financial systems for the grant. And we had a meeting of a number of players today to talk about hiring an owner's rep or a clerk of the works to monitor the construction project. So we're moving forward. We're getting everything in lined up so that when we start in the fall, we can, get this thing done and get the project built. Number 4, I want to talk, we have the Holocaust Remembrance is April 18th. It's a Sunday and it's at 4 p.m. It'll be virtual. We do want to, Ms. Fritzen, we do want a proclamation like we normally have. We'll be putting it up on their website. So we have a little time, but we can work on that. And then we're going to want to do some promotion through town email promoting the event on April 18th. Number 5, we have our Sustainable Essex Alliance, our energy aggregation. We have letters going out from Energy Harbor to our utility customers in town, the residents, letting them know that we're going into the second stage. And we have a public meeting scheduled over Zoom on Wednesday, February 24th at 7:30 p.m. And finally, I took on the task of looking at the police off-duty paid job rates. And in my research, I found that a number of towns around us have a much more robust ordinance than the ordinance we have, which I'll put up on the screen. And so I'm going to be working with the chief and Mr. Desiderio and the unions, 2 unions, to take a look at this and see if there's other things that we want to build in here. In other towns, there's a lot of things in the ordinance about the escrow and making sure we get paid before the job. And I know that's been a concern of our finance office. So it's going to take a little, I guess I'm saying it's going to take a little longer than I thought because it's now a little bigger project, but we're working on it. And now I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think that last point you made, being on public safety, we've opened up Pandora's box. Thank you. We'll now hear from Ms. Adams.
Thank you. I have a few things. First, I just want to echo the thanks to DPW for dumping all that snow at the bottom of our driveway too. But also the corner, because we have the corner sidewalk, which is always fun to try to dig through. Anyway, but it was good exercise. It was a fun storm. I love snowstorms, so. Also, I want to welcome Jerry Jimes to our thing, and I want to echo the thanks to Greg Schuster. Even going through COVID, you managed to do a great job for us, and really glad you were here during this transition. So I yesterday should have gone out through South Orange, the RFP for our joint shared service of a consultant to help us work on the recycling and garbage and leaf collection, whatever we can do to consolidate, or just how we can work on our recycling, which we talked about. We agreed to a month or so ago to work with South Orange to get a consultant to kind of guide us on this very expensive endeavor that we're statutorily mandated to undertake. So we worked with the Green Team and Environmental Advisory chairs of both towns, developed the RFP, went through our legal and South Orange's legal. South Orange will be the lead agency on this. So the RFP was advertised yesterday. And we hope to award in early March. I think March, might even be March 1st, not to award, but to have them, the proposals back. And then there'll be a subcommittee working on figuring out who we should hire to try to guide us through the recycling nightmares that we're all living through as municipalities. In Recreation and Human Services Committee, we are, as you know, there's a resolution to go, or a discussion item to go over the recreation fees tonight. We also discussed at length the fees for the woodland, and we felt it's a good time to start working on the woodland fees to make sure that they're streamlined. The previous fee schedule was just too complicated and too many outliers. We want to close up some loopholes and try to cover our expenses a little better as well. So Anna and Missy are working on those before our next meeting, and eventually it'll come before this committee. We also discussed locations and operations and security for a community fridge that Talia mentioned during the Board of Health meeting. There's a lot to kind of iron out with that, so there's more to come on that, but like to get that up and running by April, May, probably more likely to be May. But so all of that is what we're working on. I don't know if Mr. Lembrick can talk during his report if he remembers anything that I've left out, but that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Okay, we'll now move on to hear from Mr. Lembrick. Good segue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not repeat some of the public safety items that Mr. DeLuca mentioned or the recreation and human services items that Ms. Adams mentioned. I have a few items of my own, however. The Pool Advisory Committee met last week. It was the first meeting really in a while. Obviously, the last pool season looked very different than the ones before it. And there's still a fair bit of uncertainty about what the 2021 pool season will look like. But the Pool Advisory Committee is in full swing and is going to do their best to work with the Recreation Department to make sure that we have a great pool season in 2021. One of the things that's going to be a change for this year is going to be having a third-party professional organization come in and run the HR, run the hiring for the pool managers and the lifeguards and other personnel. That was a massive burden on our recreation department. And the only thing that made it manageable was the fact that so many people were just rehired from prior summers. But given the Township Committee's direction, given cultural and other issues at the pool that need to be addressed, that everyone be re-interviewed and reconsidered before being rehired for this summer. Ms. Mancuso looked at it, determined that this is much more common that municipalities use these third parties that come in and basically take over a lot of the hiring and HR function in terms of onboarding pool employees. This doesn't mean that Maplewood residents, particularly Maplewood young people, won't be employed at the pool. We have no reason to think that the best candidates for these positions and the most willing applicants for these positions will not continue to be kids from our own community, both for the lifeguard positions and for the other staff positions on deck and otherwise. And the pool committee is busy planning events and trying to figure out how we can keep members coming back and how we can maybe even potentially provide opportunities for guest passes or guest opportunities during the summer if the pandemic is at a place where that doesn't present too great a risk. So the pool committee, does not necessarily know what the summer holds, but is trying to prepare for all eventualities in a way that we could not have seen coming this time last year, but with the benefit of this last year of knowledge. And I will probably, to that point, the Pool Advisory Committee has a number of vacancies, and I think at our next meeting in closed session, I'll be recommending several residents who volunteered to serve on that committee, many of whom have already attended last month's meeting, to be appointed at our first meeting in March, so we can get them on board and they can fully participate through the spring as we prepare for the summer season. Moving along to public safety. The Public Safety Committee will have its monthly meeting next Wednesday evening. That will be February 10th. And that will be at 7:30 via Zoom as usual, as we've done for the past many months. In addition, on the Maplewood Police Department, the Township Committee is going to be conducting interviews this Thursday night and next Monday night. We are doing a captain promotion. We're interviewing candidates to be promoted to the rank of captain. So we're interviewing 3 current lieutenants for that position. And then we are also interviewing several new patrol officers or potential patrol officers to fill vacancies we have in patrol. So looking forward to bringing in some new officers to the Maplewood Police Department. On a similar note, I want to make the public aware that the Community Board on Police is having its monthly meeting tomorrow night, February 3rd. That's at 7:30, also via Zoom. And the public is, of course, welcome to join us at that meeting. My final item, Mr. Mayor, is just to put something on the radar of my colleagues that I didn't have ready for this meeting because things are still developing, but I hope to have more clarity in advance of our next meeting. And that's, I'd like to bring a resolution for consideration, hopeful support by the Maplewood Township Committee that would support the efforts that are being led particularly by some senators and congresspeople from New York and New Jersey to reinstate full SALT deduction. That's the state and local taxes. That was changed with the tax reform bill passed under the last administration. And now that we have a new administration and a different composition in the Senate, there is renewed hope that we may be able to get, if not full, at least increased SALT deduction put back into tax policy. And as everyone in Maplewood probably knows, that's a huge impact. The current limitation of I believe about $10,000 does not cover the state and local taxes that most people in this area, especially Maplewood homeowners, pay. So that would be that would be a huge help for our residents. And I'm still trying to figure out where our representatives in New Jersey are on that. But I think that a resolution at our next meeting that I'm happy to draft in advance, encouraging our senators, our congressmen, and perhaps the rest of New Jersey's congressional delegation to support those efforts, to sponsor that, and to vote for it is something that I plan to bring to the next meeting for this committee's consideration. Mr. Mayor, that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. And I think we all do look forward to your resolution.
I have a question. Is the Thursday interview is virtual and Mondays in person?
That's correct.
And for those, we were going to actually have those interviews this Monday, but obviously the weather, we deferred them to this the following Monday. So thank you again, Mr. Limbrick. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. A few of my items were already covered in good detail, so I'm not going to repeat. And I know that you have at least one item from Finance Committee that you'd like to report on as mayor, so I'm going to let you do that. The only thing that I'd like to add is regarding the community fridge, and Ms. Adams already covered it pretty thoroughly. We did have a meeting with the Youth Advisory Committee. This is their initiative, along with the MAPSO Youth Coalition members, along with community services and with human services and welfare. And we discussed health department also. They have done a lot of research into the sanitation required elements of this. They've done a lot of research into assembly and construction. So we talked a lot about location. And it seems that the leading location, and again, we'll report back once we have a confirmation about this, but the leading location seems to be the former farmers market location, not where we do it now, but where we used to do it off of Springfield Avenue. There is a grassy knoll there. There's a bench there. It's very visible off of Springfield Avenue in Indiana. And we have confirmation, I believe, that there is electrical supply there that would be required. And that seems to be right now the leading candidate in terms of possible locations for the community fridge. And there'll be more about that, as Ms. Adams said, later on as we get closer and closer to the details. But we are looking for a late April, early May launch, which we think we can do. The budget for this thing is pretty small at this point, and we think we can cover it through the VPOC grant. And our next meeting is going to be bringing together our community food partners, our community food banks, our pantries, and the various community groups that are engaged in food distribution efforts, like Soma Shares and others. So more on that later. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. And that was a good reminder. I'm just going to touch on one thing really quickly, is every Thursday, Essex County does a food distribution event, giving out 400 or so boxes of food. And, it's all over Essex County. We haven't had it in Maplewood for a couple months now because of the construction that's happening at our community pool, which is the key place where they like to do the process. Once the construction's over, we'll definitely host it again. But, as we're almost a year into COVID, we have a lot of food insecurity out there. There's no shame in wanting food. So this week's food emergency food distribution event is at 9 a.m. at St. Matthew AME Church. The address is 336 Oakwood Avenue, and it's in Orange, New Jersey. 336 Oakwood Avenue, Orange, New Jersey. Rain or shine or snow, I guess. 9 a.m. until they run out. I have a thank you and a congratulations, and just a couple of items. Again, I want to say thank you. I think it is more than appropriate to thank our DPW again. A phenomenal job. Michelle and the team did a phenomenal job out there on the roads, perpetually. It goes without saying, when you don't have a strong team out there, what could happen. And also to as Mr. Luca talked about, our fire and police being prepared, and having, if there's a call for the ambulance, they have to have a plow in front of it to get through it. There's a lot of complications that occur in a snowstorm. So I want to recognize all of our first responders for a job well done over the last couple of days. I want to congratulate our SID managers for their work and efforts. Downtown New Jersey had some awards this past month, and our SIDs were recognized, our downtown districts were recognized for the work they did. Nicole Wallace and her team in the Springfielding Partnership for all the efforts that occurred around Yale Corner, and also Debbie O'Hannon for all her efforts as well with the MVA in the village as well. So it just speaks volumes when you're recognized by a credible organization, and it's both of our SIDs that were recognized. In terms of a couple items I want to touch on, first is the vaccine. It's so, we are trying to, obviously, we're working with the county and want to get the vaccine as many arms as possible. We heard from the health department today about how important it is to get the vaccine in the arms of our residents, and with an emphasis on residents of color. But as of the 1st of February, the county has administered 40,600 shots. Of that amount, 1,225 are Maplewood residents, about 3%. And within that number, 109 have received the second shot, which is about 9%, and 1,116 their first shot. So it'll keep moving forward. The numbers will get higher. I want to thank Mr. DeLuca and all our residents who volunteered over there. I have not heard a single complaint from any resident, be it on social media or bumping into someone outside with social distancing or any other email or any channel. It's been a well-oiled machine. That being said, last week, I think there was a lot of concern in our community about one of our other groups, and that's our teachers getting vaccinated. So last Thursday, I joined several mayors in Essex County, Mayor Klein, Mayor Collin was there, and other mayors on a call with the governor's office to really push for a solution to find a way to help our teachers get vaccinated. It seems to be a very challenging issue. So we discussed a lot of things. I presented a theory where in Oregon, for example, they've created a program where if you are a primary school teacher, 3rd grade and below, you are considered first responder and they are getting vaccinated. The challenge that the county has is that, and as well as the state really, is that we're only, we're at the hands of the supply. But they did recognize that, that we're listening to our residents and we want to help get our teachers vaccinated, as well as everyone else in phase 1 and B, to help us get to the other side of this situation. The last thing I want to talk about is a report from the Finance Committee. Finance Committee met a couple weeks ago now, or last week. It seems like it all blends in. And we covered 5 items. The first is we talked about the CARES Act and the update on that. At this point, we have nearly allocated all the money that was available to us in terms of getting compensation or reimbursement, I will say, from the county. That being said, all of our expenses accumulated is about $250,000 that is outstanding, or excess, if you will. We're going to go back and ask the county for a 3rd round allocation. Maybe there's some unused funds there. But if not, we're going to have a conversation about a way to address that gap, be it that we incur it in 2020 when we close the books, or we look at a 5-year bond, which gives us some flexibility there. The second agenda item we talked about was the 2020 Chapter 74 Pandemic Relief Law. In the meeting on the 16th of February, we will hear from Mr. Kaloje. He's working with Mr. Schuster to come up with a plan in terms of providing scenarios that we can look at in regards to that particular situation. The third item, which is actually a discussion item, so I won't spend much long on that, that's the capital project over expenditures that we discussed. We'll be talking more about that in a discussion item. I would just say that if you reference your January 22nd memo from Mr. Kaloje, that would be prudent, so that will help you understand the direction that we need to consider in regards to addressing these capital project over expenditures. And then finally, well, actually the 4th item is in terms of a fee waiver, which is something that we've done before in regards to electronic fund transfer. We're looking to continue that waiver and continue at least into the next quarter. I know that Mr. Daff is going to work with the Communications Committee to put together more information. We think it's important because by waiving this waiver, it's also a way to for those who like to drive them to the electronic channel to do their fulfillment of their bills versus the traditional paper and also interaction or theoretical interaction with our finance staff. And then finally, our 2021 budget is right around the corner. And what that means is that we have a series of meetings So working with Mr. Schuster and Mr. Michalowski, we have put together 3 scenarios, which we disseminated today. We don't need to discuss it necessarily verbatim here, but really the idea is when we met as a finance committee, this is different than any other year before because it's going to be virtual. And all of us on this call know how taxing those Saturdays are and how much information is being provided to you and how you have to decipher and make decisions in addition to all the reading that we do the week beforehand in preparation. So take some time, look at the scenarios, and what we try to do is put some breadth in the scenarios. As you remember, trying to stay ahead of the curve. When we had those very long meetings back in the summer, township committee meetings where we were meeting for 6.5 hours, those meetings were very challenging. And I think with everything that we're facing in our budget heading into 2021, we need to be fresh, sharp, and ready to go. So we're looking to have some breadth. And so the options include incremental breaks, as well as stretching out for 3 Saturdays versus 2 Saturdays. And then also we set up the meetings this year to really focus on our higher budgeted departments in the front end, the morning versus tradition where we have kind of had them at least 1 or 2, even 3 in the afternoon. So these are some of the strategies we put together in that regard. So that is my report. And with that, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is number 15, their discussion items. And we'll talk about the recreation fees. And I know Ms. Adams will be leading that.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I believe Ms. Mancuso did send everyone documents, so I asked her to please go through the existing ordinance to do some redlining and changes that she wanted so that we could get this moving. I will say she has updated some of the ranges for different recreation fees. A lot of that has to do with, new offerings in those categories as well, which would be a little more expensive. But the basic rates, there aren't really any increases in existing fees. Like there's nothing really changing in that regard. It's just mostly changing the range that she's recommending. If we have too many questions on this, I think what these changes will do is kind of streamline it. As you'll see, instead of identifying each and every event that under the seniors, for example, taking that out and making it more of a general range for senior activities so that if something's created, because as we know, Ms. Mancuso has been very creative since she's been in her position in adding programs and adding things for different categories of athletics or entertainment or recreation and cultural affairs. And we just wanted to make it the existing comply more with the ordinance and streamline the categories a little bit. So I don't know if anyone has any discussion on any of this, or I personally think it's okay, but obviously it's why we're here.
Any discussion?
Mr. Desiderio, do you have any issues with this?
No, I understand. So the intention is to draft something and have it for you for introduction at the next meeting?
Yeah, because so that she can have it for this year's recreation programs.
The only question I have is, has this been run by the Recreation Advisory Committee?
I believe so, Mr. Lembrick, or, oh wait, I think he's frozen. Between muting and frozen, that's like 2 things that are.
Because I know you're looking at the arts facilities, and I do want to run those changes by the Arts Council.
Right, and that
I know that's not tonight, but
no,
I want
right.
to make sure we're also doing it with Recreation Advisory.
Yeah, I don't. Mr. Lembrick left, so we can just make sure that they see this. I think they did discuss it, if I remember Ms. Mancuso saying so at our meeting last week. But they didn't have, Recreation Advisory didn't meet in January, so they didn't go over specifics, because I had her draft the more specific changes. It can go to them first.
I would prefer that before we introduce it, we get at least for them to have eyes on it before.
Yeah, okay. So if it's, everybody's okay with it, I'll have Missy, or I'll ask Mr. Lembrick and have Missy send it to the Rec Advisory Committee. Hopefully it won't have to wait until their next meeting, but if it does, they can get eyes on it through email and see if they have any issues.
Agreed. I think leveraging email just to keep it going, to your point, Ms. Adams.
Yeah. So
Mr.
Mr.
Lembrick is back. Did you want to ask him, Ms. Adams? Mr. Lembrick.
Sure. Mr. DeLuca wanted to know if Rec Advisory saw this. I know they didn't meet in January, but I know that Missy had talked with them about it. But there was no real, anything major changed in here, so she didn't feel like they would have any problems with it. And I think you agreed, but I might be misremembering.
No, that's true. The changes, some of the changes that she was thinking about making for this year, there had been, I don't know about opposition at the Recreation Advisory Committee, but at least, desire for further discussion about, and those items, Ms. Mancuso decided, not to change those fees for this year. Right. So that, the only fees that are really changing or like you said, are really ones that are sort of being added. And these were not discussed with the Recreation Advisory Committee because they didn't have a January meeting. But my expectation is that there wouldn't be an issue, given that there's really nothing changing here, and the issues that the Recreation Advisory Committee had previously expressed an interest in being involved in discussing are not being changed, are being held for the time being.
Right.
I still would like them to take a look at this and before we introduce it. I just don't want to get blowback because we didn't let them look at it one more time.
That's what I was going to say. So Mr. Lembrick, if you wouldn't mind emailing to them, they can just take a look at it before, like, in the next week, by the end of the week or something, so that we can direct Mr. Desiderio to update it for first reading at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, because their next meeting won't be until the night after our next meeting. So yeah, I'll ask them to, I'll have Ms. Mancuso send it to them and ask them to review it, and I'll send an email asking them to review it, in the next few days, so that we can be aware of any concerns before it goes forward.
Right. And to your point, that's what anything she wanted to raise or change in any dramatic fashion or potentially possibly dramatic fashion, she's leaving out completely. So.
Right.
Till maybe next year. Okay, so that's why we'll proceed. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Okay, so I'm up. So the next discussion item is capital project over expenditure. So I don't want to share the memo because I'm not sure what I can and cannot share, but hopefully everyone received the memo from our CFO on January 22nd, where he had a long debrief with Mr. Kittner regarding a handful of projects that are currently underway. And so essentially, we're looking at about 1.5 million in capital projects overs. And when we went through them in detail in the Finance Committee meeting, these are situations and scenarios where we cannot kick the can down the road, if you will. So this is a breakout with the current pool situation. There were two issues that resulted in about 300K of additional funding needed, pre-construction planning costs, and construction issues. Now we've already broken ground. We're already in there. We're trying to do everything with the filter, the new pool house. This is something that we got to get done and have that pool ready, COVID or not, for for when we open in 2021. We've talked about this a lot about our fear of having our filter break during the pool season and also not being ready for opening. So that is a cost that Mr. Kittner, as well as Mr. Cloge, think that we need to incur. The other cost is related to our DPW underground storage tank. After, like any situation, once you break ground, what they found is, and I quote, significant environmental issues that were unexpected. And so, like anytime you break ground, this is something where they have to be addressed. You know, we have to follow EPA and other ordinances at the state level. So that is a cleanup, an environmental cleanup that is significant in cost, about $500,000. And then I move on to our town hall roof project. And this one, a similar price tag as the ordinance of about $300,000. But this one is super critical because when going forward to address our roof at town hall, because the way the ordinance was written, we were able to basically allocate or kite funds over that were earmarked for our Hilton Library roof and the wall repair, the Civic House roof, wall and roof repair, and also bathroom renovations at the DPW garage. If we do not allocate that money, then we won't be able to fix those facilities. And if there was ever a time to fix these facilities, they're now for two reasons. We're about, sometime this year, we're going to break ground on our main branch, our main library, and we're going to be having a lot of traffic and volume over, at our Hilton branch, and that library's got to be ready. And so I would hate to kick the can down the road here and not address those needs to make sure that library is successfully equipped to handle the situation. And then, of course, our Civic House, which we all know is in great need of repair, the roof itself. Once we are, so we have to really think about that as well. So these are expenses that are coming. And then, let me not forget, there's two more expenses, and these are related to our police and our court building. These are related to the cooling tower and the hot water heater. We're in a situation now, and Mr. Schuster was there as well as Mr. Daffis, where both of these particular items in that building are either at the end of their life or a potential where we don't address them. We're looking at, if not this cost, even more if they go past critical mass. So when you add all those up together, we're really looking to bond about $1.5 million. Any discussion?
I think we should move forward with it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think it would be irresponsible on any of these to not move forward. I mean, we've already, as you mentioned, we've already invested money in some of this, and we have to see it through. And others, is stuff we need. And if we don't pay for it now, we're probably gonna end up paying more for it later, and have to deal with the consequences of it not being fixed in the meantime.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you. What we'll do then is, since I have the support of the Township Committee, I will follow up with Mr. Kaloje on next steps, and then Mr. Schuster will follow up with Mr. Kaloje, and then of course we'll go through the process, and if we need to, we'll loop Roger in as well.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I'd expect that we could probably get a bond ordinance on the agenda for the next meeting, the 16th. So yeah. I think we should shoot for that, and I'm sure Mr. Kaloje will be happy to do what he needs to do on his end to make that happen.
Absolutely, that is definitely our intent, and he'll be there, so he'll be able to enjoy the hopefully the passing of that ordinance. Okay. Thank you all. We're going to move on to agenda item number 3. Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Newark passed some years ago an ordinance to create a civilian complaint review board. And among the powers that the board had was that they could subpoena documents and also have police officers testify at the board. The union, the Newark Fraternal Order of Police, sued. It was a 5-year legal battle. The New Jersey Supreme Court ruled in August that the board could not issue subpoenas and could not conduct investigations at the same time as the police department's internal affairs unit. In order to promote or to continue to promote police transparency and accountability, Mayor Baraka and the city of Newark appealed the New Jersey Supreme Court ruling to the US Supreme Court. Recently, the city of Jersey City filed a friend of the court brief, or will be filing a friend of the court brief in support of Newark's position. Given that we have a community board on police and we've talked about the various powers that it has now and we might want to give them in the future, and that we have consistently talked about the need to have more accountability of police departments across the state, I wanted to bring it here and suggest to my colleagues that we too, Maplewood, file a friend of the court in support of Newark's case.
So, discussion, Mr. Daff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should definitely join and support this effort. I have my reservations with this U.S. Supreme Court composition currently. A decision by this court might not be in our favor and might tie our hands for a very long time nationally for all CRBs across the nation. And we know that CRBs have popped up all over the place and even in suburbia. And I'm proud to say that we were the first in suburbia in New Jersey, Newark being a city. Certainly, as we have reported in our annual presentation recently, the Community Board on Police is keen on looking at how we can expand our powers and duties in order to promote greater transparency and accountability. And we have recognized in the 2 years of doing our work that we are up against a lot of hurdles. And as we've said publicly recently, for instance, here's a good example of this. Even just on subpoena power of documents, a regular citizen, any citizen has greater subpoena powers by way of the Oprah request to obtain records from the police department, including disciplinary records, than our civilian review board does, our community board on police. So certainly there is, there should be greater latitude offered for greater transparency and accountability. The issue that happened with Newark is that their review board was allowed to conduct an investigation of its own before the internal affairs investigation. And that really rubbed the New Jersey Supreme Court the wrong way. They thought that that was in complete violation of traditional law enforcement, where you go through the IA process, it gets kicked back to the police department. And then afterward, if your civilian review board wants to investigate and make recommendations, they can. And that was essentially the decision of the New Jersey Supreme Court. But in practice, such a decision is meaningless, because once you've gone through the IA process and it's been kicked back internally, then what good is it to make a recommendation that, again, is only advisory at that point, once disciplinary action has been taken or not taken? So I support our joining the friend of court cautiously. I'm very cautious, but I do think that this is the right thing to do, and we need to push. And I think that other towns will join if we join. And I think we'll see this kind of litigation across the nation.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can I, thank you. I share some of the concerns as Deputy Mayor Daffis. I think that, well, first of all, the Newark, the court hasn't agreed to hear the case yet. They've just petitioned for a writ of cert. So, I mean, my prediction as someone who, as a lawyer who, I don't follow the court on a daily basis, but I follow the general trends, and my expectation is the court is probably going to deny cert, not because and refuse to hear the case, not because this case isn't important or isn't controversial. It's probably going to deny cert precisely for those reasons. This court has not really shown a willingness to take on issues like this, and I think that the precedent that it could set across the country is probably one that it doesn't want to set. And I also shared Deputy Mayor Daffis's concern that if they do take this case, it probably won't be to give civilian review boards more power. One of the things that came down from the New Jersey Supreme Court decision, Newark didn't really lose the case. The New Jersey Supreme Court actually, it took away the subpoena power and the concurrent investigative power, but it did leave the board with a lot of other review powers, including to investigate citizen complaints about police misconduct, to make recommendations for the pursuit of discipline, and a number of other powers, including some of the advisory responsibilities that we've given to our own community board on police. If I was counseling Newark, I might tell them to quit while they're ahead, because the odds of the Supreme Court taking this case and making what the New Jersey Supreme Court said any better for Newark, I think, are slim. But if Newark wants to pursue this, and I know Jersey City is backing it, I think we should support them. I don't think we're going to change their mind, and I'm rooting for them to win. That being said, so I'll vote to support this tonight, but I have concerns about this case, and I'll also just note that while it probably is a decision that won't be made by this committee one way or another during my term, that I think we should be, the fact that we are supporting Newark in this case for the right of cities and townships to create a civilian board with these kinds of powers doesn't necessarily mean that I would support giving the community board on police in Maplewood subpoena power or concurrent investigative powers or some of these other things that go pretty far beyond what their authority is now. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I don't want my vote tonight to be construed as saying that I think that that I've reached the conclusion that our community board should have those powers, because I'm not sure that that would be good policy for our township. So, but I will vote to support this tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
And thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Yeah, I'm going to support this tonight. So I'm a yes on this.
So I will move that we join the lawsuit as a friend of the court.
A second.
Third.
Before you vote, Mr. DeLuca, I have a question. And I don't know the answer to this. Several things. The Township of Maplewood has in the past joined as a party plaintiff or in some capacity party defendant and basically tagged along by putting our name on it. What I think you're moving for is to retain counsel to file a separate brief on behalf of the petitioners with regard to this. All right. And if you're going to do that, that's fine. Number one, I am not qualified to do it. I will tell you that. And number two, so we A, have to find somebody, and B, I don't think it's going to be inexpensive. If it's a question of just signing on, that's a different issue. We've done that in the past. But I'm just trying to understand the scope of what it is you want to do.
I don't think it's that. I think it is writing a brief. In the past, you're right, we have signed on to various petitions that were prepared by other legal professionals. This is maybe the cost can be minimized by just, talking to Jersey City and seeing what they're filing and essentially doing something that they file. But I do think this would be our filing. There's no overarching entity that's looking for us to join. Like,
I mean, one of the, we don't even know, I don't even know as I sit here, what the federal issue is that the court, that they're asking the courts to really decide. So the answer is, we're going to need to have some direction on how we want to move forward. That's all I'm.
So how about we agree that we want to move forward, and we instruct you to reach out to Jersey City and do some research and come back to us.
That's fine.
My check approval for sure. So
my understanding is that we would be signing on with Jersey City and others who've said publicly that they're going to file. I mean, Jersey City, I don't think has filed yet.
Right.
A story that I'm seeing from just last week said they were planning to. So I think maybe we can have Mr. Desiderio reach out to Jersey City and find out if they're interested in having co-signers. I would want to co-sign something. I think I would be less comfortable, just because of the expense involved going out and filing our own here.
Yeah.
Let's go with the option that you're talking about. I think the most important thing is that we want to go on record.
Yes.
And then how to make that happen, and we can evaluate, whether or not if Jersey City allows us to sign on, and I think Mr. Daffis said maybe other towns might want to sign on, based on our leadership and Jersey City's leadership, then let's see if they're open to doing that. If not, then that's another decision we'll have to make on, cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, I will reach out.
Terry, I'll send you the arguments because I circulated that, when it was announced that Newark was doing this a couple of weeks back, but I'm sure there's been a lot of emails in your box since then. So I'll recirculate that so you can see what the arguments are.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and take the vote, though.
Well, what are we voting on exactly?
This is the vote to have Mr. Desiderio contact Jersey City and ask about signing on.
So it was my motion. So let me make the motion.
Okay.
That Maplewood support the appeal of the Newark case, and that we instruct Mr. Desiderio to determine what's the best way for us to do that and come back with a report.
And I will second that. Any discussion, further discussion? All right, hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, let's call the roll, please.
Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. DeLuca. All right, we're now on agenda item number 16, our consent agenda. May I get a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move items 1 through 11 on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Adams?
Yes.
Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're now on our second and final public comment, and it's on any subject matter. Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone who would like to address the Township Committee?
Yes, we do. Okay, first up, Robert Shoup. You got 3 minutes.
He's on mute.
Yeah, Robert, you're on mute.
Hi. Okay. I'm Robert Shoup. I'm a board member of the Maplewood Town Correction, the Maplewood Village Condominium Association. Okay, and I'm talking tonight, requesting for Maplewood Township to address a drainage issue that we have. And we sent a memo in. Our president, Robert Holup, sent a memo in addressing the situation where we have a street drain on Meadowbrook Place that is not draining properly. And what's happening is that on storms and big snow melts, probably this time around, that area gets flooded. The drain backs up to two other drains, okay, because it doesn't drain out fast enough. And then it backs up into basements of our, of our buildings and floods them. And it's a constant problem where the sump pumps are running virtually 24 hours a day. They wear out, or they stop, okay, because they can't run all that time. Then it floods and it turns on, drains it, and they burn out, and we have to replace them all the time. Okay, and we've had contractors look at it, and our supervisors looked at it. It's been determined. I've looked at it. Okay, and it's been determined that it is that drain that doesn't seem to want to exit to the stream that's behind our property. I have bushwhacked back there to the stream, and on top of the outlet, okay, is like a 12-inch tree. Okay.
30 seconds.
Well, there's like a 12-inch tree right on the center of that drain. So I don't know if it has anything to do with it. Okay, but it's the building was built in 1947, and so I assume the drainage system was built then. And so this, it's got this tree.
10 seconds.
Oh, well, anyway, we're looking for a resolution. That's basically it. It's a problem. It's affecting our property negatively, strongly, and we would like it to be.
And that's time.
Mr. Shoup, thank you for reaching out. He's still here, right?
Yes.
Thank you for reaching out. Yes, Mr. Kittner is now aware of this situation. And I haven't spoken with him personally about it, but he is aware of it. And he is planning to follow up with the president of the association with next steps, so that he is cognizant of the situation, because the letter was received on Friday. So I know that your time expired, but I know you can hear me. So look for a follow-up from Mr. Kittner and his team regarding next steps on this situation. And thank you again for reaching out to the Township Committee.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, that's all I got for you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Seeing no one else, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Hi, everybody.
Right.